Okay. All right, man. Hey, Siddharth, welcome. It's great to talk to you again. The objective of this call is really to inform Indians, to make sure that they're well aware of the MBA admissions process. I
Yeah,
want to pass on everything that you and I have worked together when you got into schools and what you've done successfully after you've gone into schools to most
right,
Indians who are clueless about the MBA admissions process or what to expect when they get into school. Yeah.
right. Happy
So,
to help, Ashwin.
thanks, man. Let's talk. I just want to introduce you a little bit. You came to me 2 years ago. Irrespective,
Yeah,
you were looking to get into business school. You knew with clarity, but you didn't know what you wanted to do, or you were confused. You got into UCLA, Anderson School of Management. You're in your second year. You're graduating in a month,
yeah,
not even a month,
just a
right?
month and a half. Yeah,
Exactly. So you're graduating in a month. You're going to be joining Adobe as a product manager.
yeah,
You did your internship at Amazon as a product manager,
yeah.
uh, and you basically fulfilled what we wrote in the essays that you want to go
Yes,
into product management, right? Okay,
yes.
let's talk about your journey and let's talk about how we can help other people get in. What they should learn from this is take away tons of nuggets so that they can actually get into school and thrive at the school. Okay, why don't you
Right.
share a little bit of background of where you're from, what your
Yeah,
GMAT was, and how did you
yeah,
end up finding me?
yeah. So I am a computer science engineer by practice. So graduated back in 2012 from Thapar University in India, and then joined Cadence Design Systems as a software engineer. So I was working as a software engineer for first couple of years, basically cross-functionally with all the teams, creating products to for semiconductor clients such as Apple, Samsung, etc. And after my stint of 3.5 years, I realized that I'm not a software guy. I might have to figure out more in my life. So I thought of business schools and how I can use my technology skills along with the business and try to create more impact. So throughout my journey at Cadence, I had been thinking about this, but I also happened to give GMAT and I got a 720 score. So since then, I had something in my mind telling me, okay, I need to move away from core engineering stuff, but think about more strategically because that's what I really liked. And when I observed product managers at my own company and other product managers, which I happen to know, but I was not quite sure whether product management is my piece of cake, banking is my piece of cake, because during the process, I was also focusing on finance because I like to crunch numbers. So I gave my CFA, I gave my FRM, and wanted to get some hands-on experience, but could not really get in back into a finance firm at India. So maybe I thought that MBA would provide me a platform to jump shift from my software engineering side to a banking side as well. So
Got
then
it.
I was networking with people. I was trying to reach out to programs from MIM, MEM, Masters in Finance, and then MBA as well. So during this process, I wanted to know the pros and cons of entering into one program because when you are in India, you don't know a lot about MBA, forget about MIM, MEM, and bunch of other programs which these schools, advertise about.
That's
So
right.
didn't want to confine myself to a particular program because I want it to be a process in which I learn about all the programs and then see what fits my objectives. So I started by researching about different programs, but in one, I happened to meet Akshar Singh, who is
Akshar Patel.
Ross.
Akshay Patel.
Akshar Patel. Yeah,
Yes.
sorry.
How
Akshar
did you? Oh,
Patel.
let's pause here for a second, right? Let's
Yeah,
talk back to when you were working at Cadence, and
yeah,
what was the particular thought that led you to believe, oh, I wanted to get an MBA? For background for people,
yeah.
as I got into Ross, I worked in consulting before that, but one of the reasons was A, I wanted a break, B, I wanted a massive salary jump. I'll be very
Yeah,
honest. I
yeah,
wrote in my essays that I want to get back into consulting, but I knew that the MBA would provide that for me. But
yeah,
like, and that's commonly the motivations of everybody that I speak to. They want a career change, or they want
yeah.
to gain skills, or they want a better salary, or they want a combination of all of them, right?
So, as it may seem very evident from my previous answer, I actually did not have much clarity into what I wanted, but I knew for sure that software engineering does not thrill me anymore. This is
Got it.
something which I am done with, and I need to apply these analytical skills to some more challenging problems. it might have been finance, it might have been entrepreneurship, it might have been product management. But for me, it was plethora of options in front of me, and I had no idea what to choose from. But I was done with software engineering, but I knew for sure that business is something which excites me. I mean, I had been following Wall Street journals, reading Harvard Business Reviews back in India. Finance had some part of me, interested some part of me because I gave CFAs and FRMs. But to be honest, I had no clarity if product management made true sense, which I really believe does now.
Okay, good enough. So then if you can think back to 2015 when you
Yeah.
got in touch. So if I remember, or actually I looked back in my Gmail history last night in preparation for this call, you
Oh,
got in
great.
touch with Akshar in 2015 February.
Right. Yes.
He then
Yes.
put you in touch with me. In that note, I remember you said, "Hey, I'm pursuing my CFA. I saw that Akshar, my junior from Ross,
Yes.
who got
Yes.
into Amazon and is still working there in finance, I think."
Yeah. Yeah.
You said, "Hey, you transitioned into finance. I wanted to get into finance because I'm doing my CFA. Can we speak about it?" And then Akshar put you in touch with me in order to have a conversation.
Yeah.
How did you get in touch with Akshar?
So it was completely brute force. So I used to pick the schools which I thought were great based on my research from US News, Economist rankings, and a bunch of other rankings. And then I used to see which people have a similar trajectory as me, like who are in technology, so that I can relate to them. And they made a shift to finance, which I wanted to research in this case. So Akshar happened to be a person who had a similar background, and he transitioned to finance successfully. So I reached out to him like, "Hey, can we speak?"
And you did via LinkedIn, right?
Yes, everything via LinkedIn. I think I used to reach out to 4 to 5 people per school initially when I was researching myself.
So the reason I asked this question is very specific. I have observed in the time that I've known you. Now I've known you for, man, it's over 2.5 years, right?
Over
Since
two
the
and a
time
half
we
years, yes.
started talking and worked together, and then we kept in touch through school. It's not so much what we have learned together in our time, but the fact that even before you met me, your innate nature was to actually find out people who've had similar trajectories, research
Yeah.
them, find out, and initiate a conversation with them. Most
Right.
Indians don't do that. So I want to just draw this appreciation that
Thank
this
you.
is an important factor for somebody to actually pursue when they're looking at business school. Connect with
Uh,
people, ask them for advice, or get into a conversation with them.
right. I think it actually ties back to the bigger picture as well. I think I got my job because I connected to the right people and talked to them about things which I liked and they also liked. And this helped me get my job as well. So if you
You
look into the
mean
bigger scheme of
you
things, it's
mean
not
after
just
MBA?
Adobe.
Okay.
Yeah, at Adobe, I got Adobe because I reached out to the right people
And
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 I
we're
networked with them.
and we're going to talk about this as we get through. Okay, so you got in touch with Akshar. You weren't really sure what you wanted to do, but you wanted options to pursue in order to further your career.
Yeah.
Akshar put you and I in touch. Um, so I understand your motivations. You wanted to further your career in a certain area, but let's talk about the conversation that you and I had. Just as a snippet,
Yes.
here's what most people should know. The process of MBA application is so long and belabored. You and
Yes.
I looked at my calendar history during the time we worked together. We've had over 30 hours
Yeah,
of
I'm not
phone
surprised.
slash
Yes.
Skype calls. It's more than I've had with my family. We've had 30 hours of phone and Skype calls during the 3 and something months, and then subsequently when you were doing your internship and during business school.
Yes. Yes.
And we've exchanged over 430 emails.
Wow.
What do you have to say
Wow.
about that? I,
That's a ton of work.
exactly. So I think most people need to appreciate the level of effort it takes, particularly, and it's also I think it's also a differentiation factor that a lot of consultants,
Yes.
I hate to say that
Yes.
will do 3 edits and pass it on, but for
No.
us it's a relationship that we need to get on.
Yes.
Your success does not stop when you get into school, but your success continues after you get
Yes.
out successfully from school, when you have a job and when
Yes.
you're thriving in your career. Right? This is
Yeah.
a gateway, and if I'm at the gateway, I need to be there through the end, and that's how I've always been with any of them. But okay, let's talk about what you were thinking during that conversation when you had, and what you learned from our initial conversation, if you can recall. I know it's a long time ago.
Yeah. As far as I remember, I think we talked about my motivations of doing an MBA. And
Yep.
obviously, at that time, it was more about finance. So we talked about how my journey has been till now. How did the motivation for finance come in? And then how do I think MBA would be able to bridge the gap? And
Yep.
I think in the first call, what I really learned was you need to be at least halfway through your journey. What you and MBA can help you the other half in reaching
Yep.
what you where you want to be. So then I reflected back and I figured out, okay, finance is something which I want to pursue.
Yep.
Do I am I actually halfway there? What I want to become, and then that self-reflection part started, and I used to think a lot about it, and finally I realized maybe I do not have the best expertise or the best skills to actually pursue finance,
Yep.
and which made a whole lot of transition. And I started to, based on your advice,
Yep.
talking to product managers at
Yep.
different companies from different schools. And then
Yep.
I thought, okay, this also sounds exciting. Never thought technology would be this exciting, and I can stay associated with technology and still be more strategic and problem solving. So that's how I transitioned and pitched myself later
Okay,
on.
so when we had that initial conversation, and when I told
Yeah.
you to reframe this, right? I told you based on a couple of things that I have learned, which you can probably validate now that you're almost through UCLA. But just for
Yeah.
the benefit of everybody that's going to listen, here are the things. I term it as the ladder strategy, right? Think of a ladder. It's a stepping stone from the MBA is just like a missing step
Yeah.
that you need to fill in order to get on the same ladder from your past career to your future career, not
Yes.
jumping from one ladder to another, right?
Yes.
When I
Yes.
reframed that and said, hey, you need to think about it, given your background and your involvement in speaking with product managers as a software engineer, as a programmer, as a designer, what, and then you can translate that with business skills into product management. What did you think at that point? Did it make sense to you then, or were you still hesitant?
Regarding what? Can you like rephrase it a
So
bit?
when we had the initial conversation, and I said, hey,
Yeah.
forget about the career in finance. It's going to be too big of a jump for
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
Schools are going to be hesitant to take you in because they don't know if you can get in. Look, anybody can go into a school, change their career track. People do that all the time. But
Yeah.
a more logical step for you would be to go higher up within the product management sphere because you have the
Yes.
technical knowledge, you work with product managers. Once you get your MBA, you can translate that into product management. What was your thought
Yes.
process when I told you and I asked you to reframe this, your career strategy back then?
Yeah. So initially, I was not surprised
Okay.
because I knew this option exists, but I was so passionate about trying to make a switch to finance that I had sidelined it for a while. But
Okay.
after talking to people and connecting with product managers, I realized that there's a much bigger picture which I never knew about product management and how you are serving as a mini CEO in a company and actually working very cross-functionally and owning a complete product line. And when I got to hear about such amazing stories and experiences which they had faced in their companies, I realized that this is much more than I thought initially. And that's how I got appealed by this career path and took forward.
Understood. Right after that first conversation, you signed up pretty quickly to work with me. What was it
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
actually convinced you that I will be a useful partner in this? Because we did like a 2 hour call. I recall we
Yeah.
did like a 2 hour call. You went through your entire thing, but what convinced you?
I think it's very important to have somebody who has been through an MBA journey, who knows what admissions committee are looking for because you had already served in the admission committee for Ross. So I knew that you have been through this journey. You know what it takes to get into B school and what do business schools at a level of Ross or say Duke are looking for in their candidates. So for me, that was a big point. And then you had an experience of working in US. So I knew that even if I go into business school, I would need some sort of help or some advice in future. And you would be able to give me good advice and help me in my career further. So these two things were something which I could not see with any other person who I interacted with, and I thought let's take it forward, and I'm happy
Did,
to be at UCLA.
did you interact with other consultants in India? Actually, I don't remember this at
Yes,
all. Oh, you did?
yes,
Okay. How many
yes,
did you talk to?
yes.
We don't need to name names or anything, but how many did you
I think
talk
I
to?
talked to three of them. Three of
Oh,
them.
wow. Oh, damn. This is good, man. I'm glad you joined. But okay, let's go back to educating people that are going to listen. All right. So now
Yeah.
in the journey, you worked with us. Let's talk about the MBA application process, right?
Right. Yeah.
You had a GMAT of 720.
Yeah.
I know from my experience in business school, at least at Ross, the
Yeah.
average GMAT score that the school espoused at that point was 710. I know for
Yeah.
Indians, a little factor which I've told you many times, out of a class of 35, the average GMAT score for Indians were like 740.
Yeah.
So it's a little harder for Indians to get into school. So it's a known
Yes.
fact. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
You had the score that you had. We selected a variety of schools. We don't need to name names. Talk about the MBA application process and what are the things that you learned, both
Yeah.
from doing research about the school, the
Hmm.
methodology we used,
Yeah.
how it has helped you during your MBA, and then we will
Yeah.
come to the other pieces of the application.
Yeah. So for research, I obviously relied on a lot of internet resources as the first piece, and then about I relied on the networks which I created in the school by reaching out to people. So for the first aspect, it is pretty standard. You go to GMAT Club and host of other websites which have lots and lots of things, but I found that it is a lot of information overload in these websites. You have so much to read, which may or may not be true, but you are reading it. So then I thought, okay, this is not going to work. This is something which is public and it might not be right. So I need to first figure out what are the things which people have experienced in the school. So I used to reach out to people in the first year, in the second year, as well as the alums. So
Okay, let's pause here for a second. It's an important notion for everybody to know. There's a lot of information available on the
yeah,
web, on the school's
yeah,
websites. These days, the school admission committees also post videos.
yes,
There are things that you
yes,
can read, uh,
yes,
but that is insufficient. Most people don't understand that
yes,
about the research. That is extremely insufficient.
yeah.
Talking to people who've been through it, especially
Yeah,
in the target schools that you're approaching, is extremely important. Okay, so you now went on to contact both current students as well as alumni
yeah,
via LinkedIn. How many did you
yeah.
contact per school?
For me, it would be around 10 at least.
And how many
Because,
responded?
yes, because if you reach out to 10, there are times when somebody is on a spring break, somebody is recruiting, somebody is busy because of classes or some other factor, but you need to make sure that you reach out to at least 10 so that even if you have a hit rate of let's say 4, 40 or 50%, you talk to at least 4 or 5 people. And I
Yeah.
think talking to 4 or 5 people is essential because below that you might get a biased opinion on a school. So after talking to 5, 6 people, you know that when things tie in, you know that okay, this is the theme about this school and this is what usually people think about, and that's how I will feel about when I go there. So
Okay.
10 is minimum.
Okay. In talking to these many people, what did you learn about UCLA that convinced you that this school was the right cultural fit for you? Just talk about what you learned then that you thought was a right fit.
Yeah, so I reached out to I think 8 people in UCLA and 6 of them responded. So it was first of all a big indication that okay, people are here to talk to me and share success, which the school talks about. So this was one factor on the face of it. And then when I talked to them and got on call, I realized the school is pretty warm. I mean, there have been so many other schools which I have researched about in my last few years, but I could see that people are super collaborative. It might be a West Coast thing that the weather is pleasant, people are pleasant, or what, but people are actually pleasant at UCLA, and they do believe in collaboration. A lot of schools publicize about it, but they put it in a way of shared success, which starts from admission to preparing you for interviews to as class assignments and then beyond alumni. So for me, shared success aspect struck a chord, and that's what really convinced me to get into this program, which is super competitive to get into. All everybody is an alpha personality, but then if they are collaborative, that's the beauty of our MBA program. That's when the real learning happened here.
Okay.
So
And if you recall, you and I talked about ways to actually naturally get, as soon as one person responds and you get on a call with them, there's an easy
yes,
way to keep getting more and more and more and more people
yes,
to join, right?
yes,
We'll
yes,
keep that strategy a secret, but let's not explore that just now. But okay, so you understood that the culture was collaborative. Almost
yeah,
every school says the culture is collaborative. Ross is extremely
yes.
collaborative. Every
Oh
other
yeah.
school also. All top schools are that way. Okay, we'll go into what you learned.
Yeah.
after your 2 years or during these 2 years, and what you can share for people who want to join UCLA specifically
Right.
about the school. But we'll get to that at a later stage. Let's talk about how this process of contacting people and doing research has helped you throughout business school.
UCLA.
Yeah,
Oh,
give me a couple of instances. Particularly share how you got your
yes.
job with Adobe.
Yeah. So first of all, I got pretty comfortable with this entire networking process very early because this is the big chunk of recruiting in US schools, because you need to reach out to people, form connections, talk to them, and then if you strike a chord, then they take you in the next step, which is interviews and everything.
Actually, let me pause here. I don't
Yeah.
want it to make it seem like it's extremely easy. Let's talk about all these alpha personalities. Let's talk about internationals
Yes.
that come on campus. How many
Yeah.
of them are naturally good at networking? Indians in particular.
That's, I think, less than 50%.
Exactly.
Even
Compare that to the
even after
Americans.
coming to like a big business school, there's a 50% chance that that person will not feel comfortable and feel out of place when talking to a stranger, whether be it in on like call or in person. So
And
it's a challenging process.
exactly, comparing that to Americans, you suddenly start to see, oh, there's a vast difference in the abilities, right?
Yes.
I had the exact
Very.
same experience. Exact
Yeah.
same experience. Okay, so I want to make sure, I want to emphasize that this is not that it, we are not that used to it. We don't have a
Yes.
culture, at least back in the day, where we could easily go and approach people in social conversations growing
Yeah.
up. So that's something we are inhibited by, but it's not
Yeah.
something that cannot be acquired.
Yes.
Right, and that's what I
Yes.
want to emphasize. Okay, so go on.
Yeah.
How has that helped you? How has that continued to help you?
Yeah, so first of all, I got pretty comfortable with talking to people because I was talking to them before coming here, and then I got a sense of what questions to ask and how to ask. So these are very important because you don't want to sound like dumb in these calls. You need to strike a very intelligent conversation. At the same time, you don't want to be very cold because these are just questions, but you need to ask them in such a way that you are warm, people can understand, okay, he's trying to have a good conversation, it's not transactional. So I got rid of that transactional piece pretty early. And when I was here, and then when I learned, okay, you need to network to get a job in US, I thought that I have those skills, and I was never hesitant in sending those emails, reaching out to people, networking with them, then taking their learnings into my application process for these companies. This is the first part. Second part, believe it or not, when I talked to alums in different schools, I had talked to so many people in different industries. Like I knew people from Google, I knew people from Amazon. And because I had already talked to them, I reached out to them again. So, hey, I think we talked last year. It was about, let's say, Duke. And but now I just wanted to let you know I've got into UCLA and this is my background. Can we reconnect again? And these people were willing to reconnect. And that's how I could tap into that previous network again in my job hunt process. So it once you create a network, it stays along with you through the B school and after the B school.
Even if it is in different business schools, right? The same process that you
Yes.
used when networking with people in during the application stage, you could
Yeah.
maintain that network and keep reconnecting with them and expanding your
Yes.
network as well. Okay,
Yes.
let's parlay that with an example of what you did to get your full-time job, because this is a really interesting story that a lot of people should be inspired by.
Yeah. So when I was recruiting full time, I thought that Adobe might be a good fit for me, but there were other companies as well which I wanted to explore. So I made a company list, the companies which I should try to target and create a impact in through my networking. So I found this interesting strategy in which I used to go into LinkedIn, look for hiring managers. And by hiring managers, I don't mean people who are just, let's say, group product managers or directors. By hiring managers, I mean people who are actively looking for people in their teams. And how do you know that? Most of them these days have "we are hiring" in brackets in their title. This is something which really stood out for me and made me believe, okay, if a person has "we are hiring" in his title of LinkedIn profile, he is pretty serious about hiring a person. So initially, I used to reach out to them, And surprisingly, it worked out because I think I reached out to Adobe people, like 5 of them, who had we are hiring, and they responded well. And then I reconnected with them, shared my resume, went to the interview process. And now when I have helped my other classmates follow the same strategy, they are also seeing pretty good hit rates in the terms of replies they are getting and the interview process.
So you looked through LinkedIn for these tactical notes to say we
Yes.
are hiring, contacted them.
Yes.
You were not
Yeah.
invasive, but were
Yes.
persuasive about the fact that you wanted to have a conversation with them.
Yes. Yes.
Then you brought them into the conversation, made it
Yes.
non-transactional, which is a skill also
Yes.
that you learned, right? Not just asking
Yes.
question after question, but making it a conversation.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
ultimately
Yeah. I
that
was
led
like,
you, go on.
go ahead.
No,
Yeah, I
ultimately
was
that
like,
led you to getting into interviews. After that, the interviews you did
yes.
really well and you had many interviews. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I was like, so just came across your LinkedIn profile. I know Adobe has been doing this. It's such a great opportunity to be working at Adobe. Just wanted to hear more about your experiences. And on the call, I would be like, oh, I also came across this interesting opportunity. Do you have insights? And then that person would say, oh, yes, I know the hiring manager. Send me a resume and I'll forward it. And that's how the things kept rolling. Yeah, but the biggest piece was not being transactional, which I learned early in the process.
okay, that's good. Then let's go back then to the application process. Let's talk
Yeah.
about what you learned in the craft of actually writing the resume, writing the essays, um,
Yes.
and what you learned there and what you took away from that and how it's helped you subsequently during business school as well.
Yes. So a couple of things I think which were very helpful when we worked together in creating the resume was first the star format, like having everything in a single bullet figured out from situation to task to actions and the results. So those numbers and those results speak a lot. Secondly, I would say having all the skill sets of a product manager. For me, it was a product management resume. Having all the skill sets from design to engineering to business strategy to launch, post-launch, metrics, everything in that single piece of paper. So if you have those two things, I think these are the keys to not only getting into good companies but also business schools, because they are typically recruiting you to ensure that you have a bigger career after them. So these two things I think were really
So
helpful and I learned through you.
So it is the same coaching points of how to structure and build the resume. My promise to you when you were applying was that I will teach you how to build the resume
Yes.
that will not just help you get into business school, but will help you when you are in business school. Because you know
Yes.
what most people don't realize, the first thing when you join business school is that you need to create your resume in order to start recruiting. Not many
Yes.
people know that, but that is the first activity you do.
Yes, and I mean, I eventually got good handle of how to create resumes through you. So I helped a lot of my classmates figure out that star concept in their
Yeah.
resumes, and some of my points didn't even change after coming to B school. I mean, I think almost 50% of my resume was still intact and is still intact, and in the same way we created when we were applying.
That's phenomenal. Let's talk about the difficulty, or maybe it was very easy for you, but the challenge of actually going through the entire application process for several months. It is something with endurance
Ah, yeah.
that gets results, right? People are working, everybody is working long hours, and they need to do the application process. What were your
Yes.
key takeaways from the application process, and what would you give in terms of advice to other people in order to do better at their applications? What should students be aware of when they're applying to business schools?
Yeah, I would say there are so many schools which you might think make sense for you, but having that research along with a person who has a good experience of helping others in get to those schools is very important. Say, for instance, I never thought UCLA would be a good fit for me. I think we did not have UCLA in our list initially. But then one day you were like, okay, so your story is about tech. I think UCLA is a good school. Why don't you research more about UCLA? I researched a lot. It seemed like a perfect fit, and here I am at UCLA. So, doing that research along with being in touch with somebody who can help you move through that process, help you craft your stories and personalize them along with that primary research which I told. I think these are the two key aspects to first learn about the school and then get into one. But yes, it's a long work hard process. Like you need to really keep moving, iterating, working fast, working daily.
Okay, and I want to emphasize that very, very specifically. What you did phenomenally well during the entire process, and that's the reason for why you've been so successful now, during the hard time of actually recruiting in business school. I like to typically put people under a pressure cooker. I am generally strict. I'm very demanding when I'm working with, because I say, if you cannot work with me, you will
You cannot
not be able to survive in business school. The
Yes,
pressure is
I
going to be even more immense.
yes,
Right?
yes,
So you can just do a few drafts and you can throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. But what is the skill you are taking away? And what you did really, really well, almost never miss a deadline, do more work than I had said, put creativity within it. So I think these are very, very essential skills when people are applying. I don't want people to underestimate the application process, but take it with genuine interest to develop a skill that they can utilize even in business school. And if people take it that way, it'll be super good. Okay, great. You were going to say something?
No, I was just saying that through the my application process, I also
Yeah.
understood my value proposition. So who I am as a person and what's my key value proposition from my background, and I use that value proposition through my interviews as well. So finding that actually helped me a lot in the future as well.
Actually, let's talk about interviews as you mentioned it.
Yeah.
You went through interview training. Uh,
Yes.
how was the interview training sessions, and how was that held up during interviews in business
Oh,
school?
a lot. I think I completely screwed up when we first had a call.
Yeah.
I was too mechanical, not personalized. I had those points in my head which I was just blurting out. But then when you helped me figure out my stories and how to pitch them, I realized, okay, they have to be personalized. They have to be said in a way that they come out very naturally and conversationally. So I took those learnings and I applied. You won't even imagine that I have a book, like a Word document in which I keep all my stories. So if this is my story when somebody asks me this is my story if somebody asks me that. And most of my stories which we practice, like tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult coworker piece, I still have it exactly the same. I use it at Amazon, I use it at Adobe, worked both the ways. So I think we did lots of good work, which is still continuing with me in the job hunt process as
This is phenomenal, man. This is a great success story. I love hearing this, and I love the fact that you applied it with
well.
diligence and
Yes.
with creativity. Few people do that, so well done. Okay, um, let's talk about the MBA program itself. Now, you got into UCLA.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about what you had learned when you were speaking with people about it being a collaborative culture. Talk to me
Mhm.
about the experience and give me specifics that students can use to understand, examples that students can use to understand the culture of UCLA, right? From a person who is studying that and who has studied that for 2 years.
Yeah. Like I mentioned earlier about share success piece, I think this has been the journey from the first day till now. Share success has always stood out. Let's say when I entered the business school, uh, I think we were only 3 months in the game, and then suddenly there was an ACT group. So at UCLA, you have an ACT group in which academic career teams are formed, and these teams are actually led by second year students who
Okay.
have just returned from their internships. So they help you in creating your resume. They serve as your mentors. They help you in creating your stories. They do case interviews with them. So these are the first point of contacts. And then the career management cell itself creates another interview prep teams for people. These are called IPTs.
Okay.
So each IPT has, let's say, 10 students from first year, and these are focused on you and what your career goals are and how you can be prepared for them. So
Okay.
these IPTs also have second years within these teams. So
Okay.
second years are part of your ACT teams, your IPT teams. Apart from that, the classmates which I could see at UCLA, the vibe was very warm. I mean, I had written my essays, but I got to experience this firsthand when I came here, and everybody was very willing and supportive to help you cruise through the process of networking. Because as Indians, most of the people were not very comfortable. And then I could see that a lot of American friends, which we have, were willing to help us in creating our stories, our elevator pitches, and how to make sure that they look polished enough that they are very conversational, as well as they sell your value proposition to the people. So in the entire recruiting process, from the first year to the second year, collaboration has been top notch, and people have been very warm, friendly, not only Indians, but like internationals, Americans, everybody.
What is the class size at UCLA?
It's
At
360.
Anderson? 360. Okay, so much smaller than
Most people know each
360.
other. Given
Okay,
this class size, most of them know each other, and like this speaks a lot about culture. I mean, everybody knows each other by names.
that's fascinating. Okay, okay, I'm glad. Is there anything else that you specifically remember that you feel just stands out, particularly when you talk to? Oops, I think I lost you there for a second. Hold on while we reconnect. Can you hear
Yeah.
me? Okay, I think I lost you there for a second. Okay, is there anything that particularly stands out, especially compared to other friends that you've had who have gone into business schools during your conversations with them? Something that stands out about UCLA that is besides the collaborative culture? Anything that you specifically can think of?
Yeah, I think UCLA talks a lot about think fearlessly,
Okay,
uh, and that's true because a lot of our classes talk about how to think in the next and not to be afraid of taking the big steps when you are in a management position after you graduate. The entire curriculum and the case studies which happen reflect this property of the school, which is thinking fearlessly and thinking in the next. And I think this is something which the curriculum has been designed to, make you understand that it's very important to think beyond the boundaries of what traditionally people have thought about in the way of they do business.
okay,
And this actually, I mean, it's very abstract concept. I cannot
yeah,
give you like straightforward example pointing out,
okay.
but this is something which I have seen very commonly in people at UCLA, and you get to see this why when you come here, that people are not afraid to take up challenges, and they are actually very willing to push the boundaries and do something new, creative.
Okay, sounds good. Very quickly, let's talk about the memories of your year one, the first 90 days. What were the challenges that you faced when you joined the school then?
Yes, so obviously, being an international coming to the States for the first time, it was a completely different ball game. Uh, Came to the class, had no idea of how quality education I would get, but I mean the lectures were superb, professors were amazing, homework started rolling in. It was a pressure cooker situation. Had to get on top of my assignments every week. And then, as we talked about initially, I faced the same thing. B school experience is like a triangle in which you have social aspect on one side, you have career on the other, and you have acads on the third. So it was a tough like balancing task for me because you are in a B school, you need to have that network going on, you have to have friends, you need like a good support system so you cannot miss out on the social aspect. But career and acads are important too. So how do you manage it? Well, you sleep less. You do everything and you sleep less to ensure that none of the side gets unnoticed in the first 3 months. But in the first 3 months, you actually have to like start create your baseline to get that internship, because I remember in the first 3 months, I had very clearly figured out what are the top companies where I wanted to go and what should be my strategy like in next 3 months to get that.
Okay.
So this was my first 3 months.
So the triangle that we talked about social, academic, and recruiting. This
Yeah.
was taught to me by my senior at Ross, a guy named Boris Yovchev. So Boris, if you listen to this, thank you. And he told me that typically, to be effective, one of them
Yeah.
needs to be sacrificed.
Yes.
Did you did you
Yeah.
have to sacrifice any one of them, or were you able to maintain all three?
I would say I sacrificed a bit on acads.
Okay,
So first
I
three,
took the
first
same
three,
call.
yeah. So first 3 months were more about standard subjects, which were not very difficult to get hold of. So I thought that I wanted to make new friends, like be in the buzz, as well as focus on my career, which was the sole reason I came to UCLA. So these two were of prime importance to me. But I would say later on, I had to leave a lot on social aspects because as the going went tough and it was very difficult to create the stories for interviews, pitch yourself, I thought that, okay, social needs to take a rest for now and let's focus on acads and career for now.
Let's talk about that tough going. Let's talk about
Yeah.
how difficult was it to recruit for internships? How competitive
Oh,
was it at UCLA?
so in the first 3 months, I could see that I am just somebody in the crowd, and people have tremendous background. They are super smart, and I stand very little chance of making into a top-notch company.
Oh,
I
that's what
mean,
you thought.
that's what I thought, and
Yeah,
I think I really appreciate that I thought that way because it actually helped me push myself
harder.
more, and I could see that if I need to achieve that, I might have to put in more effort as compared to others in the school. Okay, they are well prepared, they have better experience than me, but I do have those 90 days which I can capitalize on and try to see how I can make an impact. So for me, in December, I remembered like most of the times you go into trips because there's a break, 1 month of break where everybody goes on trips. But I was back in my room, creating those stories, trying to figure out what my key value proposition would be for these companies if I get an interview call from them. And throughout the month of December, it was a complete hustle in me trying to create my stories. And then in January, things worked out, and I'm very glad that I got Amazon for my internship, which was like one of the best recruiters at UCLA on campus.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I think to get into such a good company and get your feet into product management and have that
Yes.
stamp on your resume is extremely important.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so the story to cut short is that you then were also pursuing other opportunities when you came back to campus in year
Yes.
two. Let's talk about the challenges of year two. For most people who don't know how business school works, especially the Indians who are wondering how it works, the first 90 days, typically in year one, recruiting starts around January. So you
Yes.
join school around August or
Yeah.
September. You have 3 months, and then recruiting starts around
Yeah.
January. But you do a lot of legwork in terms of applying, networking, etc., right from the time you join. So September through January is about networking both with your seniors and companies, and then you
Yeah.
actually get into school. And then you actually get in January to start doing interviews depending on what field you're applying. In the
Yeah.
second year,
Yeah.
recruiting for second year students begins way earlier.
Way early.
Recruiting
Yes.
happens around October, November, December itself.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah. So in July you start applying. In
exactly,
October, like you
exactly. So
start.
almost when you're doing your internship, you have to
Yes.
already start networking with companies. You have to
Yes.
already start
Yes.
dropping your resume, and then your recruitment starts way earlier as well. Talk about
Yeah.
the talk about what your second year was like, particularly during the time you were doing your internship and after.
Yeah. So during the time I was doing my internship, I did not network a lot because I thought, okay, there's still time, and I was not sure whether I want to come back to Amazon or like explore new opportunities. But as soon as September started, reality hit me. Like, okay, there are 3 months remaining, and you need to be on the top of your game if you want to recruit full time. So again, that cycle of reaching out to people, telling them what makes you a better candidate now, as opposed to when you were applying in summer and you did not get a call, and then using your Amazon experiences and tying them up with the company and what their expectations was an altogether different ball game. So initially, it was more about, hey, my 4 years of work has been this, and this is how I'll add value. But now it was more about, apart from those 4 years, what I really made an impact was these 3 months. And now I know about product management, and this is how you should hire me because this is what I know and I can do. So again, a complete switch in stories, like not complete, but a hell lot of changes which I had to make to ensure that my expectations meet what they are looking for. Like their expectations meet my stories and my experiences. So lots of work again, networking, reaching out to people, and creating the stories all over the time
So
again.
you and I spoke multiple times during your MBA journey.
Yeah.
It was not easy, right? Let's not give them an idea that it was easy. But what
Yes.
kept you going? What was the driving factor that kept you going? Because you've stayed pretty positive and you've always been enthusiastic about it. What is it
Yeah.
that actually drove you?
For me, throughout my life, I think fear of failure is something which really makes me going ahead. I did not want to fail, given the stakes were so high, and that fear of failure actually motivated me to wake up every morning and then start networking, emailing, creating my stories, working, studying, and everything. So yeah, I would say fear of failure was a big thing for me. But throughout the process, I would say it was actually a roller coaster ride. There have been times when I was completely broken. I was like, what is happening? How am I going to get through this? Times are tough, but that's the beauty of B school. You have to, because that's how life works. I mean, you cannot win all the time. You need to learn and keep moving. And that's what I did. I kept on learning, kept on applying, kept on hustling, and things worked out in the end. So if you look at the bigger picture, it was not easy, but it was definitely worth it.
Whenever people, prospective students contact me via LinkedIn saying, hey, I know you went to Ross, I want to talk to you about your experience, they ask me what was the one thing I learned. The thing
Yeah.
that I constantly tell people I learned was how to deal with rejection, how to deal with failure, how to deal with pressure,
Yes.
because that
Uh,
was constant.
yes. And I think it's a big thing for Indians because you are coming to a big school. You are a type A personality. You have killed it in your previous experiences that you made it here. And you are not very used to failing. You are not used to getting calls from companies. You have that aptitude. But you need to realize that you are in a situation where you are not the only one. There are candidates who are super talented and equally as intelligent as you. So there would be times when you have to face rejection, but you have to take it with grace and like keep moving forward and not stop.
If you were to repeat the whole experience again, would you do it?
Yes, I would. I would do it simply because now I know in a better way what works and what does not. I
Okay.
can use my learnings and do it again, but it would not be easy repeating it. It's a
What
lot of work.
then what would you do differently so that others can learn from it right away and not make those mistakes?
In terms of recruiting,
Anything of your overall experience, what would you say you would do or you would change if you had the opportunity to do it again?
so again, I
Particularly
want
with you. Yeah.
with me at UCLA.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think one thing which I could change is being prepared very early. I think there are times when you delay your preparation a bit late for recruiting. I could have started it way early, and this would have actually helped me a lot because casing is something which you get by practice. And I did not do a lot of case interviews early in the process. And when that December timeframe came, I had a lot of workload and I had to do a lot of things which people would have done it earlier. So starting early, refining your stories and doing everything possible as soon as you get time is one thing which I would like to change.
How early would you have started if I were to give you the opportunity again? Because I remember after you got to UCLA Admit, you were like, hey, I'm just having fun. I'm going to quit my job. I'm just going to travel. Would you
Yeah.
start it even back then, or would you still wait until business school to start?
I would buy my books in India. I would buy my books in India, read through them, have an idea of how it is to interview with these companies, and then when I come to school, I use my informed like things and try to iterate on them and improve them further so that when the time comes, I am way polished than I thought I would be.
You know, much of the intent, typically, especially when I'm helping people get into schools, is that I want to prepare them for the pressure of what business school will be like. That's why I put pressure. I want to prepare them for the skills so that they won't have to spend time learning how to write a resume, that they've already learned those skills that is already future ready.
Right.
But I've tried to equip people with skills, but a lot of, in the last couple of years, people have asked me, hey, can you now teach what we need to be prepared for before we join business school? And I've always thought, oh,
Yes.
I think there's value to it, but I don't want to offer that up. But now I see, after talking to people who've gone through the school process, almost everybody says, man, I wish I'd started a little earlier and known
Yeah.
truly what to expect and get ready for it.
Yes. I mean, there can be things. So I talked about case interviews and case
Yeah.
books. There is other aspect in which you can talk to people in your own company, like people who are more into business. For me, I was an engineer, so if I had time and I had figured it out earlier, I would have definitely reached out to people in business strategy and try to get a hang of how people at my company used to think about when they used to make business decisions, so that I can incorporate those learnings into my stories, my experiences. I eventually did all that, but it happened over a call. So if I had been there in person over a coffee, then I would have known better.
Phenomenal. One thing that I think we missed before I wrap up this interview is during the process of writing the essays.
Yeah.
Most people, I think, struggle with, hey, just essay writing is complicated. Yes, getting into business school is a black box. We don't know a lot of things that admissions wants. Even after serving the admissions committee, you just don't know. What you can write is simple stories, present them in a compelling manner that convinces the school that you are the candidate to be successful at the school.
Yes.
If you recall, you know how we used all of the interviews and networking pre-joining to actually craft the essays? How simple was that process once you already had the wealth of information from talking to people?
Very easy. When you have spoken to people, let's say I speak to 5 people, then I already have 5 big nuggets ready for my essay, and I just need to push them in the essay and then create a story out of it. So talking to people was the time consuming part. After you have talked to people, figured out what they are actually looking for in a business school, then I think it's just a matter of 2-3 days when you just need to make the story coherent, personable, and free flowing.
And you've used that skill consistently even after, right? It's not just it goes into the essay. You can use the
Cover
same.
letters.
Exactly.
I think I wrote cover letters for my companies the same way. Talk to 4 people, use those nuggets, and write those cover letters. That's
exactly. That's the point I wanted to get across, and you already brought it up. Perfect. So I think skills that you do during the application are completely transferable during business school, especially from social, from networking, from recruiting. All of these are the places where you can take those skills and apply it and be successful at it. Before I wrap up, I don't want to make this about self-promotion, but what would you say about people who are considering working, who are at least thinking of going into business schools, Indians in particular, and that's all I care to work with, and that's who I want to be successful in business schools. What would you say about them applying for business schools and working with me in particular? What was your experience like overall?
Yeah, so I would say 3 things definitely stand out with you. So the first thing would be, as I told earlier, it's always worthwhile to work with somebody who has been through the same grill, who has seen what it takes to get into a USB school, who has had the experience of working in an admissions committee like you were at Ross. So you would have used those learnings to help me and other students as well in helping them be successful. So that was the first part. The second part, I think, was really good because I have seen how other people have taken help from other consultants and how they have gone through the process. But in your case, you were very well connected with me, and like we had these calls and we used to talk throughout my business schools, and you have been an important resource in connecting with me. There have been a couple of instances when you have connected to me on network and when I was looking for my full-time opportunities. So the connection does not end when you get into a B school. I think it begins on a different level altogether when you enter the B school and you have worked with you. So that's the second best part. And third best part is I know that you have lots of experience and skills. So in future, when after I graduate, I need some advice on my career, on my moves, on what I should consider next, I can count on you and take your advice.
So always happy to help at any point. You're not only part of the Anderson alumni, you're part of my alumni officially as well. So you have 2 alumni to rely on. Anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't covered? Anything that you'd like to pass on to prospective students?
I think one piece which I have realized when I've been working with people here at Anderson who are involved directly in admissions committee is a lot of times the applications are very generic. Like when you come to UCLA, you say, oh, share success. What does it actually mean? It's not those 2 words. It's more about the experience which people have faced, figured out. So I think again, it's not too less to like you need to be very sure of what the school.
Oops, sorry. I think we just lost the connection there for a second. Oh, can you? Yeah, we're back. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's not just about saying the two
So
words,
I was
but
saying, yes, I cannot emphasize less on the fact that you have to be, your stories have to be very personalized. What does you think shared success means? And you can know this in no way other than talking to people at business schools, because when you hear those stories, you know what it actually means. So go out there, don't be afraid, network with as many people as you can, and then try to personalize those stories to suit the school needs.
well, I can't thank you enough for doing
That's
this.
my only advice, I think, for
I,
business
I,
school admissions.
I can't thank you enough for doing this. I think
Always.
the effort that you put should not be underestimated. What you've achieved should not be underestimated. There are a lot more hurdles and roadblocks that are going to come along the way. I'm always happy to support you, and I hope many more people learn from you. Do give back not only to your UCLA community, but to other people who are applying to business schools, just like you reached out to them. When they reach out to you, make sure, take your time, do that, offer the support. Yeah? It was great talking to
Yes,
you.
for sure.
Good
Ashwin.
luck.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheers.